You know what I've always hated about Meet the Parents? You know what's always bothered me about that movie?
Hold on, let me guess. It's support of the military industrial complex?
No, love that. What bothers me is there's this whole plot plot device about how Greg's staying in the basement. He's not supposed to flush the toilet because it doesn't work. The cat flushes it, but no one believes the cat flushes it because cats don't have opposable thumbs. You don't need an opposable thumb to flush it. It's pushing a plunger down. It's one force. Like, you could easily do that with a paw. Clearly, it's not at all unreasonable to think a cat can flush a toilet, but no one like calls him out on it. Like, everyone in the family is like, Greg, cats don't have opposable thumbs. It makes no sense, Andrew.
Yeah, it really just take me out of the movie.
Just take me right out the movie.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, hilarious family comedy. Andrew, did you know that Meet the Parents is a remake of an independent film?
Is it? From what country?
It is from the United States of America, from the early 90s. Hang on, I see you Googling. Stop typing, Andrew, because I I have the Wikipedia page pulled up for the original. The original came out, I think, in, 92, had a very small box office. I mean, I think only released on a few screens before going to video. 72-minute runtime. Like, this is an independent ass movie. Let's say the budget was less than $35,000. Shot in and around Chicago in 91. Now, Andrew, what I would like to do is read you the entire plot synopsis for the original film, and we can kind of take a look at, what they maybe zhuzhed up or changed for the remake, or what they kept. Okay. Here we go. Strap in. This is the original Meet the Parents plot outline on Wikipedia. A man and his fiancée driving out to meet her parents stop to get gas at a gas station. The man mentioned his plans to the owner, who advises him against it. Then begins the tale of Greg, an advertising agent from Chicago who met his fiancée Pam's parents, Irv and Kay Burns, in a small town in Indiana for a weekend that ended disastrously. Despite his efforts to impress the Burnses, Greg sets off a number of mishaps. He breaks Irv's Victrola, overflows the toilet, ruins Kay's roast, rents a film starring Andy Griffith as a rapist and chainsaw killer, nearly stabs Kay's eye with a fishing pole, gets framed for marijuana planted in his suitcase and a $50 bill missing from Kay's purse, collides with a hit-and-run driver while in the family's car, drowns their dog Bingo after throwing a stick into a lake, and earns the wrath of Pam's ex-boyfriend Lee at a bar when he declines Lee's offer to dance with her. I mean, so far it's not one-to-one, but, a series of mishaps, all right? Hang tight. Throughout the visit, Pam's sister Faye, an aspiring singer and the true marijuana user, insists Greg hear her Star Search audition since she mistakenly thinks he has ties with Ed McMahon, who appeared as a spokesman in a commercial Greg wrote. On the second night, Greg, who has been told to sleep on the living room couch, searches for Pam's bedroom and enters Faye's, his fiance's sister. Near the end of the visit, Faye steals the starter motor from Greg's car and hides it in her bedroom, so Greg and Pam cannot leave as intended. He and Irv spend hours trying to fix the car with no success. After re-entering the house and causing more accidents, Greg plans to flee with Pam, who urges him to stay one more night. He then unintentionally causes a portrait of Irv's late mother Penny to fall on an urn containing her ashes. With no reputation left to lose, Greg listens to Faye sing a ballad entitled When Philip's There. She begs him for suggestions, and he reluctantly gives slight criticism, leaving her furious. Faye then tells her family Greg entered her room the previous night, but claims he wanted to cheat on Pam with her. Pam locks herself in her room, and Greg, failing to convince her to come out, starts to leave, not noticing that Faye has hanged herself with a sign reading, "Greg killed me," around her neck. As he opens the front door, he and Pam's parents hear Pam screaming upstairs. Irv discovers Faye's body, rushes downstairs, and fires his gun as Kay attempts to intervene. When asked if Irv killed Greg, the gas station owner explains that Irv accidentally killed his wife Kay and Pam, then died of a heart attack while Greg is still alive and well. The customer leaves, now uneasy about meeting his fiance's parents. Another customer arrives on his way to take his children to a circus, and the owner advises him against it, beginning a new story. The end. So, in the original, just to recap, Greg visits his fiance's family home, and everyone dies, including a suicide. A comedy.
What? What do you, how does, but like,
I can just see Universal buys the rights. Okay, we're gonna remake this. Got a few notes. Less.
What? Hold on. I have to look this up now. Oh my God. What are you talking about? This is,
Are you reading about it or looking at pictures?
I'm definitely not on the Internet Archive downloading it right now. That's for sure. Oh God. No, wait. And this is funny?
I mean, it's a comedy. I don't know. I guess you can watch it and let us know, Andrew.
Wow. This is shot on a camcorder. Oh my God. I don't know, man. It reminds me of this movie I watched once. Alamo used to do this thing called God, what was it called? Mixtape Massacre, maybe? No. It was they called it horror mixtape, or it was a mixtape. But what the joke is that they would take trashy slashers or horror films and cut them down to 30 minutes, and then they'd show 3 of them back to back, and that was the mixtape. And I did one where one of the movies was My Bloody Valentine, the original. And then another one was this movie, God, I don't even remember what it's called, but the premise was this guy is dating a woman, and he loses his job, and they're trying to get money. So she's trying to find odd jobs to make some money for him. But what ends up happening is he finds this journal that she's keeping, and in it are these explicit descriptions of these affairs that she's having with various people around the house, the handyman, the landscaper, all that stuff. So what ends up happening is the guy calls them back to the house and he murders them one by one. Anytime his wife writes a story about somebody, he calls that person back to the house and then kills them. And there's 2 things that I remember. One is at one point he reads the latest entry and he throws the book down and grabs his hands to his head and just goes, "Why does she keep writing this down?" Then the twist is that she's writing stories to sell to adult magazines. None of it's real.
I love that.
So he killed all these people for nothing. But it's obviously it's shot terribly. It's there's no production value whatsoever. Clearly shot on a VHS camcorder type thing. But it feels almost a level of that kind of movie where it's just pure insanity. And then the twist is out there.
Sometimes you just have a good hook, that's all you need.
What's the good hook, Chris?
What if meeting the parents goes so bad that everyone dies? I don't know.
Oh my God.
I also love the little the narrative thing of the gas station attendant telling the story, setting up a
Yeah, like some
series
weird
of movies like this.
some weird like Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Dark Side type narrative device of like, here comes a story about an amusement park next.
Tales from the gas station attendant.
Oh my god, the things you could do, man. The things you could do. Anyway,
Anyway, theme song. Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by my annoying and uninvited co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to listeners, Andrew.
what am I supposed to say after that? Like, what?
I know,
what?
that was really mean.
What? Why'd you do that to me? I got problems, man.
I could have just said my co-host from Chicago, and it still would have been a reference, but I didn't think of that until just now. Hey, each week we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Listener Demands Month, and this week we are talking the 1988 film, The Great Outdoors. This movie was demanded by listener Mike Lynch. Mike, thank you so much for submitting it. I know you definitely made Andrew happy for doing so. Mike Lynch also submitted Hudson Hawk, which we will not be covering this month, but thank you for 2 submissions. I do think Hudson Hawk is a good fit for our premise of what we do. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Who knows? Haven't seen that one, but I also had not seen The Great Outdoors. I had never seen this movie. Did not see it growing. Now that I've watched it this week, I don't think I've ever seen a scene from this movie. I think I said last week that maybe I was conflating it with Uncle Buck. That's got to be the case. I had never seen anything here. My first time watching it. But Andrew, I know that's not the case for you, right?
It is not.
How many times have you seen this movie?
I've seen it a bunch.
Is it from the Williams vault growing up?
No, actually, not really from the Williams vault. We didn't have a lot of John Candy in the vault, I don't think. I don't know why, but I don't remember. Like, we had Who's Harry Crumb, which none of you, thankfully, or unfortunately, none of you wrote that in. So what I'm going to be doing instead, I think, is next year for my birthday, I'm going to rent a theater at the Music Box, and I'm going to make all my Chicago friends watch Who's Harry Crumb. But it's something that, like, when you start diving into the Candy filmography, this is one that comes up a lot because it is one of his, like, this is right before, I think I said this is right before Uncle Buck. So this is kind of right when he's at his, it's kind of right when he's hitting his plateau, I guess. Like, you've got The Great Outdoors, then the next year you have Uncle Buck, you have Home Alone the year after. And then that's when things kind of, you get Cool Runnings a couple years later. So it's, but yeah, I've watched this movie a lot. Obviously, I like Dan Aykroyd a lot too. I've talked very positively about Dan Aykroyd any chance I get. So, a movie that had John Candy and Dan Aykroyd in it, why not? I was excited to check that out. And it's just become something of a warm blanket of types, when times are rough, which means I've probably watched it about 87 times in the last year. So,
certainly came out a good time this year, Andrew. All right, let's set the stage here. This movie was released June 17th, 1988. By golly, it's as old as I am. It's made on a budget of $24 million. At the box office, it brings in $43.5 million. Not a huge hit, but certainly not bad for a comedy in the 80s. Critically, it's okay. It's all right received. It has a 42% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience score, probably not surprising, significantly higher. 71% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. This one certainly, I think even, when Mike suggested this, he said it's a favorite amongst his family. I feel like it's that kind of movie. Like, you watched it with your dad, you saw it on TV, you rented the VHS. A comfort comedy, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that 71% audience score. Yeah, this is just, I think I'm not going to lie, there's probably a lot of nostalgia going on here. I love this poster on Rotten Tomatoes that's clearly just it's like, first off, it's a photo of John Candy standing, and I'm relatively certain it's an unrelated body with Dan Aykroyd's head pasted on it, and then they are very crudely photoshopped or painted to look like they're tied up together, but they're very clearly not. Like, it's just a cavalcade of errors that certainly was a DVD cover in like 2009, that no one just ever thought to fix. But I do like this movie a lot. The audience score doesn't shock me. The box office, I was curious what this thing was up against when it came out. Some interesting cuts here. The weekend it comes out, the weekend of June 17th, 1988, I was a scant month from turning 1 year old, so did not see this in theaters.
Okay, I was going to ask.
But it comes in number 3 opening weekend. It places behind number 1, which was the other new one of the other new releases that week, Red Heat. Not sure if you're familiar
Arnold
with Red
movie?
Heat, Chris. The Arnold James
And
Belushi movie.
James, okay, I was going to try to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Try to remember who was in it. Yeah, okay.
So that takes number 1 for the weekend with a blistering 8.1 million. Coming in at number 2 in its third week of release is Big, making 6.6 million. Hitting number 3 is The Great Outdoors, hitting 6.1 million. 6.12 million. In at number 4, which was in its fourth week of release and was number 1 the previous week, Crocodile Dundee 2.
Okay.
Which at that point, I want you to guess how much money that had made in it by its fourth week.
Crocodile Dundee 2. I'm going to say 60 million.
71 million.
God
in 4 weeks
bless.
Of release. There was a time
in 1988.
Paul Hogan. There was a time Paul Hogan was a draw, brother. Not the only Hogan that was drawing some dimes back in the 80s, brother. But sorry, folks. That was a little deep there. But number 5 is a movie called Big Business, which is, I'm not familiar with that at all. But apparently,
and the box office at the same time as Big. I'm surprised a studio
movie called
that
Big
happened.
Business. And then at number 6, oddly enough, Bull Durham, and it's also opening weekend.
Wow, I didn't realize that had such a soft opening.
Our top 10 is filled out by Willow at number 7, Funny Farm, the Chevy Chase comedy, at number 8, Rambo 3 at number 9, and then The Presidio at number 10. Beetlejuice hanging into the box office too at number 12 in its 12th week of release. But that was the other
some
fun
good variety
thing to
there.
see there.
Good variety there.
There is. The next weekend, The Great Outdoors holds at number 3, but everything is upset by some new release that comes out called Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So I'm guessing if I go to
that's
the next
that
week,
that's that like Cool World knockoff, right?
Yeah, it was a few years before Cool World, but like it really it was the proto formula for what Cool World perfected.
Yeah.
So
as a
don't stab me, Doug. Come on, you know I'm kidding. But
I believe my text message to you was Jessica Rabbit walked so Hollywood could.
Yeah, basically.
That should have been on the poster.
It should have. That's a pull quote, man. That's a pull quote deserving of the DVD. But yeah, so an interesting box office run, does not make a whole lot. Like you said, ends at about 43.5 million. I'm sure this thing had a lot of rentals and home video releases though, so it's probably definitely profitable. Definitely.
Picking it up at your grocery store. Renting it at the front of the grocery store.
You remember that, right? When
yes.
Grocery stores had
there's like a little boxed off area with like the security scanner. You walked in. I remember those like VHS bulky plastic cases,
clamshell cases. Yeah,
the renting video games from there, and like the case was never made specifically for that system, so it was always just awkwardly in like a shell case.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Those were the salad days. I mean, these are all right, but it's there was time.
Whatever I want instantly. I don't know. Is that better, Andrew? Probably.
Yeah, probably for of that whatever. Anyway, interesting box office run, but yeah, Yeah, it comes out. It came out. I don't know when I thought this came out, but I guess like 88 just didn't feel right. But then like, because I look at it in relation to like John Candy's other stuff, but like, so this is, after Spaceballs and Planes, Trains and Automobiles, which is the year before. And then obviously Uncle Buck, which I think is like the real like that's the John Candy movie, right? Like Uncle Buck. Like
Uncle,
that's
but
the
I think of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles personally.
That's true. So this is like weirdly either way. If those are your two, this is sandwiched in between them, which is a little strange. So it's like when
Yeah.
it's like when he's in his star power, and we're like he can carry a movie, but it's not like Uncle Buck is probably the one where like that's a solo. Like that's John Candy's movie is Uncle Buck, whereas Planes
Yeah, it's
Trains
not a
is like,
two-hander.
hey man,
Yeah.
that's a buddy comedy really. But yeah, it's interesting, and so interesting spot where it sits. But I'm excited to talk about it.
Let's take a look at the creative team. It is written by the one and only John Hughes, alum of the show. We've talked about him before, but something that just can't be said enough, deserves repeating, because I'm sure I made a very similar argument the last time we talked about him. This dude put in some work in the 80s. I mean, he turned them out like crazy. I'm gonna read through the first 10 years of his career. Here are movies that he was a credited writer on. At least some of these he directed. I'll come back to that. He's a writer starting in 1982. National Lampoon's Class Reunion, Mr. Mom, National Lampoon's Vacation, Savage Islands, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, National Lampoon's European Vacation, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Some Kind of Wonderful, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Career Opportunities, Dutch, and Curly Sue. And then 92, Beethoven, Home Alone 2, 93, Dennis the Menace. It keeps going. Like, it really doesn't slow down. But just those first 10 years, I mean, he's turning out 2-3 movies a year in some of these years and directing many of them. Weird Science, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains. He directs all of those. The dude, like, not only is he turning out a high number of movies, but the quality. I mean, like, half of those at least most people consider a classic movie, like an 80s classic, whether it's a teen classic or, I mean, Planes, Trains is just a straight up the best Thanksgiving movie ever, right? I mean, it's an all timer. It's ridiculous, and you could. I mean, he really throughout the '90s kept up with the. He's also a writer on Flubber. We've talked about him multiple times. Really kept turning him out, and you could argue quality dipping or whatever. I still think that there's some sneaky bangers in there, but you can't deny the machine this guy was. It's incredible.
No, and then it's kind of wild, but like his last like credited writing appearance is a movie in 2001, and then he writes and directs nothing after that. He has some story credits on a few things scattered in between. Yeah. But he has a story credit on Made in Manhattan, which is always really funny to me. But those two, that Drillbit Taylor, which is in 2008, are both like pseudonyms. Like, I guess they were old story ideas that he just didn't want his name on. And then he has a story credit on Home Sweet Home Alone, but that's like only because it's a remake of Home Alone, essentially. That's the only reason it's really he's there. But like, it is wild that, like, and if you look at the last couple of years, like, he writes Home Alone 3. He writes, Reach the Rock, Just Visiting, stuff where it's like, they're clearly not the successes that things were before. But like you said, from 82 to 92 is basically like bangers. Like, looking at these movies, he's got what, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like over 20 movies in that 10 years. And I would say, like you said, at least half of them are like genuine 80s classics, or not just seen as like genuinely great pieces of cinema. Like, with a wide variety of people too. Like, of these and of this list, like, there's just weird stuff that like Savage Islands is just a weird movie, and he's one of the writers on that. I think that one was an older script that he just got brought in to polish. But like Mr. Mom, Vacation, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Career Opportunities, Home Alone 2, Beethoven, and Beethoven spawns its whole sequence of sequels and stuff. It's like, it's genuinely just kind of insane what the man was capable of, and then just kind of vanished. And I'm sure we've talked about this before, but like, it's
I remember
kind of wild.
Before he passed away, I remember hearing stories that like he had become like a recluse, but I think what's more accurate is
He's been a recluse.
Well, I think he just didn't give interviews and just spent time with his family. Like people made it sound like he was like alone in a cabin somewhere rotting away,
Yeah.
but I think he just essentially retired and became a family man, which great. I mean, I love anybody that can do that, and thank goodness he did. He passed away way too young. He was only 59 when he died in 2009. R.A.P. of course to John Hughes. What a legend.
Yeah, I mean, his career speaks for itself. Everybody, like, I mean, he's got tons of classics in here. Like, people don't even remember, like, and some of it people don't even realize. Like, he wrote National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and I'll talk a little bit more, but I think there's definitely some DNA of aspects of Christmas Vacation that are definitely here in The Great Outdoors, at least in some capacities. But like, he's written multiple Christmas classics. He's got the Thanksgiving movie that's, the Thanksgiving movie to end all Thanksgiving movies. So like, he's got tons of stuff that like he's written that's just well done, that's just classics. And I don't know that there's I'm sure you could start diving into like but like the run he had throughout the 80s, like from 82 to 92, is a body of work that I think anyone deserves to be immensely proud of. It sounds like 1994 is kind of when he retired from the public eye, and still wrote a few movies after that. But then, like I said, you read this, like, the morning he died, like him and his wife went to visit their son, and like they said it was all just fine. So like, it's not like he was like out in a cabin somewhere avoiding everybody. He was just living his life and didn't really have any desire to do anything. And if he played his cards right, which I presume he did, that run from 82 to 92 could probably sustain a whole family for several lifetimes. So
I suspect
don't
there's
imagine
some nice generational wealth there. Yeah.
And I suppose I would think the residuals for all of that are also pretty nice. But and then, like you said, the directing too, because he doesn't direct all these, but then he does direct 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, and Uncle Buck. And those are all, you see those on television all the time. They're endlessly in syndication. They're endlessly out there. They are all huge classic movies, and it's kind of nuts that one man's responsible for all of them. But yeah, his career speaks for itself, and we've talked about him before. But because we did, what did we do?
Home Alone 2 and Flubber.
Yes, we did. But yes, so stolen credit cards, all timer.
He does not direct this one, though. This one goes to Howard Deutsch, another alum of the show. We've talked about him before, and I probably made this same observation about his filmography. I'm going to do it now. The man directs Grumpier Old Men, The Odd Couple 2, and The Whole 10 Yards. 3 comedy sequels where he does not direct the first entry. Just directs the second one. I don't know why that tickles me so much, but it's just such a specific niche to have. It's like, we're making a sequel to The Whole 9 Yards. Who do you bring in? Oh, I got just the guy. You're not going to believe this. This is like his specialty. And I can't speak for The Odd Couple 2, and I don't think this is true for The Whole 10 Yards, but Grumpier Old Men, superior to the original. I prefer
really?
the sequel in this series. Yeah. It's
The Odd Couple 2. The Odd Couple comes out in 1968. So he directs. So this is a sequel to The Odd Couple made 30 years later, which is 100% only made because of the success of Grumpier Old Men. Like, that's the only reason it happens. Because it's
What year's
nothing
The Odd
like
Couple
The
2
Odd
come
Couple.
out?
1998, 30 years later.
Is it a legacy sequel?
It stars the original guys, but
I guess not
don't-
really. There's not a new.
It's there's no, like, it's got their families.
Where did
in
we
it,
land
so
on
they're
this? We've defined this because you like to say Psycho 2 is a legacy sequel.
I do. Because there
So
are
if
new
that
characters
qualifies,
in that.
surely. Okay.
There's new main characters in Psycho 2. There's not really new main characters in The Odd Couple 2. It's basically just
Fair
another
enough.
excuse to put Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in a movie together. But if someone were to call it a legacy sequel, not going to hurt my feelings. But did we do The Replacements? Is that where we talked about Howard Deutsch?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Which, great. Love it. He had 3 collaborations with John Hughes. This is his third and his last, near as I can tell. But wait, maybe not. Yes, it was. So he does Pretty in Pink, which is one that a lot of people think John Hughes did direct, but did not. And then he also directs Some Kind of Wonderful. Basically, he just found John Hughes just found that guy. He's like, hey, if I can't do this, I'm going to have you do it. Because if you look at his filmography, he directs Breakfast Club. He does not direct European Vacation. Because Amy Heckerling oddly directs European Vacation. Amy Heckerling, obviously known for directing such films as Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Clueless, but she directs European Vacation. But then there's a run where it's John Hughes, Howard Deutsch, John Hughes, Howard Deutsch, John Hughes, John Hughes, Howard Deutsch, John Hughes. Like, it's just all of his movies in a row were directed by either him or Howard Deutsch. So it's a pretty good, nice work if you can get it. And then he eventually transitions, becomes a really big television director, seems to still kind of be hanging out there today. And Howard Deutsch is married to Leah Thompson, so good for him.
Good work if you can get it. Andrew, is that okay to say? I don't know. I might take that out.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
The good for him was already kind of stretching it.
All right, Andrew. Well, let's dive into this film. Talk about everything we enjoy, everything we like, all the positives about the great outdoors. Andrew, you ready?
Yeah.
Chet Ripley is taking a vacation with his family in a cabin on the lake, eager to spend quality time with his 2 sons, just like Chet once did with his dad. But when Chet's sister-in-law and her husband Roman arrive with their 2 daughters, the vacation quickly devolves to a series of embarrassments, accidents, and animal hijinks. And that's about it. I didn't bother putting in more detail in there. There's a romance subplot, and then there's a subplot about Roman and his financials. We'll get to it. We talk about scenes, but the real thrust of this movie is that these 2 people that don't really get along are forced to share a cabin, and they bicker and get into all kinds of wacky trouble. And it's 80s comedy. Yeah, that about covers it?
Yeah. Basically, doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.
Can you imagine being on a family vacation and someone you don't like just shows up and they're just going to stay with you?
No, I can't. Like, I hope no one thinks they know me well enough to surprise me on vacation. Like,
yeah, it's wild.
Like, I genuinely, like, it's one of those things. And don't get me wrong, it completely plays into the character Dan Aykroyd plays here, that he just does this. But like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I would be mortified at the thought of that. Like, if somebody even suggested to me, like, oh, you could go surprise him up there. Like, at least I'm gonna get like my own cabin. Like, I'm not just gonna like show up at theirs and be like,
1000%.
oh, I'm gonna not just am I intruding on your vacation, I'm also going to stay in the same house as you. I would at least be like, I'm at least in another house across the way, so that like we can spend time together. But like, I'm also in my own thing, so I can do my own stuff. So like, I would still feel like I was horribly overstepping if I did that. So,
Even if it was someone I liked that showed up, I would
right,
not like it. Yeah, kind of a wild premise for a movie, but good premise for a comedy. We're going to talk about all the hijinks and the scenes of this film, but before we do that, we're going to start by talking about this cast, specifically the high point, the best casting, the best performance in the movie, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance, and we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. So, Andrew, kick us off here. Who is getting a Mark Strong Award for the great outdoors?
Well, I think there's really there's two main options here. I really think it's got to be one of the two. And this is a tough one for me, but I'm gonna end up going with John Candy as Chet Ripley. I love my villains and I love Dan Aykroyd, but I got to go with John Candy here, just because there's this. He manages to be funny by the situations that he finds himself in, which are obviously kind of what John Candy is known for. But the just kind of like, I don't know what it is, but like the fed up late 30s man who just really is trying to relax and can't find a way to do it. For some reason, I just really empathize with that these days. So playing the straight man, so he's kind of playing the straight man to kind of Aykroyd's more smarmy, underhanded one, and it's a good balance, I think. I like John Candy. He comes off like he's genuinely just trying to show his family a nice time. He's trying to bond as a family, and it just keeps going wrong, which again, this speaks to kind of the DNA I see a lot in like Christmas Vacation. But which again, I'll talk more about that with scenes. But with that, like just maintaining that kind of level-headedness, that kind of through line throughout the whole movie, but still managing to be funny and get himself into these ridiculous situations. And then having weird moments where like Dan Aykroyd is this hype man while he's trying to eat steak and stuff like that. It's just really funny, and I like it a lot. But that kind of calming, fatherly presence, I think John Candy does a great job kind of bringing that to life. And in that regard, I will be going with John Candy as Chet Ripley. And just so you know, John Candy was my age when he made this. And
Andrew, could you eat
some reason
96-ounce steak or whatever the hell it was?
I could probably do a 72, but
all right.
I don't know. Something about knowing that like John Candy is the same age as me when he made The Great Outdoors unsettles me. But maybe there's still time to turn it around. We'll see. But yeah, John Candy, you can't go wrong. I've obviously talked at length about John Candy in the various times that we've talked about him. I know we talked about him on Wagons East. Have we talked about him anywhere else?
I always think we talk about Home Alone, but we covered the second one and he's not in it.
He's not in that one.
We've probably found excuses to talk about John Candy. I think Wagons East is the only official time we did. Maybe he even picked up a Mark Strong Award there. If so, he's now a 2-time Mark Strong Award winner, but of course, no way for us to check. There's no way for us to know that. But I do want to say I'm agreeing with you, and John Candy is also getting my Mark Strong Award. All respect to Dan Aykroyd. I like what he's doing here. We'll talk about him shortly, but it was really no competition for me. John Candy is one of those comedic actors, and it's a very specific quality. I don't think this about like every great comedic actor, but specifically, he can make any line reading funny. Everything he says is. He can do it in a comedic way and elicit a laugh out of anything. And that's such a rare quality, but it's just looking at him. Sometimes it's just a look or like, like I just say, like a line delivery, the way he says it is just, it's like the guy just has comedy literally in his DNA. It's a super rare thing, but it's no wonder why he's such a beloved comedic actor, especially for people that, millennials or Gen X that grew up watching his films, that he's so beloved. Andrew, have you seen that documentary? The documentary's out now, right?
It is. I haven't watched it because I'm pretty sure it would emotionally destroy me.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
But,
I mean, I'll watch it, but I gotta be ready to be hurt. But
there was a funny story because it came out. Colin Hanks directed it, and Ryan Reynolds was a big part in getting it made too. Which, yeah, when Ryan Reynolds was out promoting it, I was reminded that a lot of people don't really like Ryan Reynolds right now, and I guess it's because of his wife. I don't really know the details there, but people, you don't know any of these people. You don't know them. That's not worth getting invested over. Uh, but the two interviews that Ryan Reynolds was responsible for getting were Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. And he's like, there's a whole documentary about getting an interview with Bill Murray that's one of its own, that's its own process. But he talked about getting the interview with Dan Aykroyd, and he was like, it took him like 2 months to finally get Dan Aykroyd on the phone. And Dan Aykroyd called him, and he was just like, tell you what, kid, you're going to come up here. You're going to spend the night. We're going to have breakfast the next day. We'll do the interview. Then you get the fuck out of here. And he was like, yes, sir. All right. Excellent.
That's pretty good, Dan Aykroyd, by the way.
I've been working on it. It's so yeah, Dan Aykroyd it's I guess it's just weird because like Dan Aykroyd, I feel like I said, I feel like you just haven't seen him a lot lately. Like obviously he shows up in the new Ghostbusters movies, but there's this kind of like weird like Hollywood doesn't really want to use Dan Aykroyd. And don't get me wrong, he's a weird guy. He believes in some weird stuff, but it's it doesn't touch the level of people like Tom Cruise, so I don't know what the deal is. But but yeah, so I haven't watched it yet. I'm sure it's good. I've heard it's there's a little bit of the negative reviews I did read is that they feel like it's kind of very surface level, like it doesn't really dive too deep, and like I don't know what they maybe thought was hiding in John Candy's past, but they're ultimately like you're just kind of watching a bunch of people talk about how great he was, and I was like, what's wrong with that? Like why would I be upset about hearing people talk fondly about someone they loved from their past? That doesn't, besides making me cry a lot, I don't see the problem with that. But
sure.
It's but I'll get there one day.
Okay. Yeah, I'll add it to my list. It looks like it's streaming on Prime right now. I'll have to check it out.
I think that's where it was released, so yeah.
Okay. Andrew, would you say he's playing against type in this movie? Just because usually, and I might be wrong about this, but like this is the complete opposite of planes, trains, and automobiles, where he's the annoying one, right? He's overbearing. He's kind of a lot to deal with. I think even like Home Alone, a small part there, it's like, whoa, this guy's kind of a lot, but I need a ride. Uncle Buck, I don't remember. Is he annoying in Uncle Buck or grating in Uncle Buck?
Uncle Buck, he's a lot more cynical and like sarcastic in Uncle Buck, but he's not really overbearing in Uncle Buck. Like he's just kind of a mess as a person, but like he's not really like, I mean, he's the star of the movie and he's got nobody to really that's playing against him, so you can't make him too unlikable. But yeah, so I would say this is a little against type to that point, but like not like out of the wheelhouse. These are kind of like all shades of the same thing in a way, and he's just kind of turning up certain traits and turning down others. Because like he's not like Del Griffith is definitely an overbearing character. It's the joke of the character is that he just has no boundaries. He doesn't understand. Or ultimately, as it's revealed, he gloms on to people and he overdoes it because he's lonely and wants attachment. Something else I definitely can't relate to. But it's and so when you get to characters like this, like you're getting a lot more of that, like that paternal instinct that still kind of exists within Del to an extent. But obviously all the kind of annoying tendencies are turned down. And then when you take like a character like Chet, you can dial up the kind of cynicism and you get Uncle Buck basically. And like if you turn down the cynicism and just have the wholesomeness, but you turn up some of the annoying things, that's how you get
the Polka King?
Gus Polinski. I was trying, it's gonna come to me. I knew it was. So I think it's a very adept way at just, obviously he's playing to what the movie is asking him to do, but he's doing it very well. And I think it's a very fine balance of like knowing which traits that he needs to emphasize, which ones he kind of needs to play down. And so this one kind of exists more kind of, it's a little bit, to borrow a music term, it's kind of flat all the way across where like, he's not really annoying in like a Del Griffith sense. Like there's moments where like he's kind of a dad and he's a little bit annoying to his kids just because he's being a dad. But like that's a very different thing than like taking your socks off on a plane, which you should be thrown out the door for that. But it's So it's against type to an extent in that he's kind of playing the very straight man to everything that's kind of happening around him. But yeah, it's not too. I don't think the departure is too far from the things that he kind of is known for.
Dan Aykroyd, of course, the other lead of this movie. He plays Roman Craig. He's the fast-talking, all-business, smarmy brother-in-law that shows up uninvited. First off, I gotta defend myself real quickly here. I embarrassed myself way back on Tommy Boy talking about Dan Aykroyd, because in Tommy Boy, his whole thing, like, he's from Chicago, and I was like, Dan Aykroyd probably is from Chicago, right? And you were like, Chris, he's Canadian, which I suppose is a well-known fact about Dan Aykroyd, but he does this so well. Like, this Chicago accent, this whole thing, his personality, I don't think it's crazy. I don't know much about Dan Aykroyd to think that maybe he's from Chicago. I've probably made this rant about him because we talked about him on Ghostbusters as well, where I don't know, Dan Aykroyd is, maybe he's just like always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing. I mean, we talked about him a lot, talked about him on Coneheads, where he's the lead there, but usually he's part of an ensemble, whether it's like SNL or a movie like this or Ghostbusters. But he's not the central driving comedic force. He's either playing a straight man, or I don't know, like here he's not a straight man, but he's not, I don't know.
This is a dual performance. Like this is not, I see what you're trying to say. There are instances where he is presented as the star of a movie, and they are largely not huge successes.
Sure.
He is almost always, like, you look at the things that he's known for, Blues Brothers, like even just keeping it to movies, not looking at SNL, which is obviously an ensemble, but Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, Spies Like Us, The Great Outdoors, everything he does largely, he's either playing off of somebody else or he's part of an ensemble. And that's like, there was a time where I think it was Eric Idle who said that if any member of the SNL troupe could have been a python, he said it would have been Dan Aykroyd, because Dan Aykroyd fits where he needs to fit. He serves the material almost always. He's playing the character that the story requires him to play. And he does that pretty well. Because like you watch something like The Great Outdoors, he's annoying as heck in this movie. Like, you don't like him, but that's what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be the smarmy, kind of a little out of touch, like condescending stock trader investor guy, and he does it super well. You look at something like Ghostbusters, where he basically plays the everyman essentially, and he's perfect at it. And you look at something like Spies Like Us, where he's playing off Chevy Chase, and he's meant to be like, obviously Chevy Chase kind of plays Chevy Chase and everything, but he's kind of playing, he's a little bit more flat compared to Chase, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do for that movie. So there's this chameleon-like tendency where, like, when he's in movies, he basically just is doing exactly what the story needs to work. And,
but it feels like he's more than a utility player,
Yeah,
like
I would
he's
say
above.
That. Like, I agree. Yeah,
but he's not quite like. I mean, he is an A-lister, but he's not quite like comedy star like a lot of his co-stars we've mentioned. He's this weird, like, in between area. I can never quite put my finger on him. I was like, is Dan Aykroyd actually funny? And I can think of a lot of performances and stuff, and I really think about him. Like, yeah, he's definitely got comedic chops. He definitely makes me laugh, but like, he's never the funniest part of the movie he's in. But it's not because he's not funny. It's because what you were saying. He's playing the role that's asked of him, and it's usually just not the funniest guy on the team or on the screen.
Right, and that's kind of a it is an odd thing, and don't get me wrong, I agree that like it's tough to quantify, because like he's basically like an A-lister that never does A-lister stuff. Like it's an odd spot to be in, where like he's like sniffing the main event. He's the Kane of SNL, really. Like, you can heat him up to get back into the main event scene if you need to, but he usually gets cooled off and put back down. And it
Yeah,
is
Andrew,
odd.
your Hulk Hogan reference earlier was too deep of a cut, but let's talk about Kane. Let's talk about how Dan Aykroyd is the Kane of Hollywood.
The Citizen Kane of Hollywood. No, no, and it is interesting to think about because like I like Dan Aykroyd a lot, and he's like super identifiable, but like you said, you compare that to somebody like Bill Murray now, or even like even Harold Ramis in his later years. Like Bill Murray is still by many people's estimations a movie star to the point that like if Bill Murray shows up in something, it's kind of a thing. But like Dan Aykroyd carries very little. Like he shows up in Adam Sandler movies sometimes. Like that's kind of what he does. And he's shown up in the Ghostbusters movies. And I've talking.
Talking.
I've talked about him in those movies before and how I think he just loves playing that character so much. But it's an odd thing, like where it's a strange spot to sit in. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's hurting for anything, but it's an odd thing. But I do like I mean, I like Dan Aykroyd. I've always liked Dan Aykroyd. Stuff like Spies Like Us, Ghostbusters, those are just big parts of my childhood, genuinely. And then obviously as you get older, you start watching Blues Brothers more. I just got a fancy steelbook of Blues Brothers on 4K, which I'm excited for. And
Got some Crystal Skull vodka.
I do not have that. But it's just something about buying vodka shaped like a skull when I hate vodka. Just doesn't seem worth it. I already bought David Lynch coffee when I don't drink coffee, so it feels like a strange thing to do. The coffee was only $10 though. But it is an odd thing. And even stuff like sneakers or, things like that. Like I always like Dan Aykroyd when I see him. And I'm just like Ghostbusters, and I spoke about this when we talked about these things before, but like just seeing him get to play Ray Stantz and Ghostbusters again, that just means the world to him. Like he's so happy to play that character again because he tried to play that character again for so long and didn't get to before like Harold Ramis passed. And so to get a chance to be that character again, that's just it's stuff that you can tell means a lot to him. And I'm always happy to see him, but yeah, it's an odd thing because he's definitely identifiable. Like everybody knows who Dan Aykroyd is largely, but he's definitely like, I can't think of a single movie in my head that like stars Dan Aykroyd as like the attraction.
Coneheads, I guess, but even then,
maybe
like,
that's closest. Yeah,
he's technically the lead, but like it's more like the character,
it's him
the
and
makeup,
Jane Curtin, and like
it's the premise that's the star,
right? And so like I'm trying to think of like movies where like he's genuinely, and like don't get me wrong, Blues Brothers, he's clearly one of the. Like, even Trading Places, like it's him and Eddie Murphy together. Like the whole premise of it is them together, and he's also playing it like super straight and serious for most of that movie. And let's just ignore the part on the train. But it's so it's a very interesting career. It's very, don't get me wrong, I'm certain anybody would be glad to have it, but it's definitely an odd status that he has.
Stephanie Pharisee plays Connie. This is Chet's wife. Looking through her filmography, I've definitely seen her in things before. She definitely had a face where I'm like, I know this person, but even still, I recognize a lot of these movies, but I don't know where I'm pulling her from.
She plays
Evan Can Wait.
She plays Max and Danny's mom in Hocus Pocus.
That's probably where I haven't seen Hocus Pocus in a long time. That's probably where.
But I bet that's where it is because watching this, I had the same thing, and looking at her filmography now, that's the only thing there that I know I've seen, and so that must be the thing that's coming through there. But yeah.
Well, the obviously the guys are the stars of this movie. It's the way it's set up, but I think both of the wives, respectively, we'll talk about the other one here in a moment, are definitely given plenty of opportunities to play off the guys and their hijinks, whether they're getting fed up with what they're doing or playing along or sometimes being petty with each other. They get their moments to shine, and I had a good time.
Yeah, she definitely gets in on the action a little bit when things kind of blow up, and she gets to get her kind of zingers and jabs in, and that's the kind of good stuff to see. Up until that point, the wives are kind of more like utility characters to an extent. They're there because they kind of have to be, but they're not really. Obviously, the Chet Roman rivalry is the driving force here, And so as the movie kind of escalates and everything kind of gets out of control, they both get to kind of jump in on the jabs and the insults, and that just makes the movie all the more fun when the chaos kind of culminates.
And then Roman's wife, played by Annette Bening, who
Not
I
familiar.
feel like I feel like is so much bigger than this role, but I guess in '88 she's still like rising. But I mean, just super accomplished, super
this is her first film.
Awarded.
This is her first film. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. Okay. Well, not a bad place to start, I guess, but would go on to receive tons of acclaim throughout her career. I mean, her biggest Captain Marvel, right? I mean, definitely the role that people think. I'm watching her face, trying to figure out if I'm being serious or not. I'm just kidding. No, she's done a million things. She won a million awards. I don't know. I was trying to look for like one movie to stake as like her movie, but it's really just.
She gets nominated for an Academy Award for The Grifters, which is 2 years after this. And then she eventually gets nominated for several more Academy Awards: American Beauty, Being Julia, The Kids Are All Right, and Yad. But she's also in The American President, which was a big hit amongst parents of young children in the 90s. Mars Attacks. She's in Mars Attacks too for people of our age. That might be something that she
alum of the show.
stands
We
out.
talked about her before.
And she plays Barbara Land, who is the Galaxy. Jack Nicholson is the casino owner's wife, but not to be confused with Glenn Close, who plays Jack Nicholson as the president's wife. But she's in Mars Attacks, obviously American Beauty. It's, yeah, and, you know, as you get more recently stuff, like, obviously there are probably people who know her for Captain Marvel. But even more recently, she's done stuff like Apples Never Fall, which is a mystery drama series that's, I think it was a Peacock one. And just all sorts of stuff. Like she's got, and even some stage performances. So a more limited, I guess I just expected her to be in more movies. Like there's still a good amount here, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's a almost 40-year career, and I guess there's just not as many entries as I thought. But she was in the more recent adaptation of Death on the Nile, the Kenneth Branagh Poirot film. So she's definitely been around, done her thing. But here she is very much, like I said, this is her first movie. It came after some stage performances. She was mostly known for Coastal Disturbances, which was a Tony Award-winning play, and then did a couple of television movies and TV show appearances in the mid to late 80s, and then this is her first film, and then 2 years later, she gets nominated for an Academy Award. So, speaks for itself, really.
We've got 4 kids in this movie. The one I want to single out for this part here is Chris Young, who plays Buck. This is Chet's older son, and he gets his own subplot in this movie that I quite enjoyed. And I think he does a great job. He feels like a kid, like a young teenager, kind of caught between like being a young adult, being a kid. I feel like this movie does a good job not hitting too many tired tropes, like older brother constantly antagonizing a younger brother, a lot of infighting. Really, mostly the families like get along with each other, which is kind of nice to see. But I think he does a good job. Really, it's kind of straddling both worlds, being a kid and having a somewhat adult sort of experience. A good little coming of age story nestled into this movie. And then Chris Young would continue to act, but still working in the industry in some way. I'm actually looking at his website here, where he does like augmented reality and VR stuff. This website is like a almost like a resume for him, kind of breaking down what he can do. But he's worked as an actor, as a director, as a producer, and now looks like he does this VR tech, which is pretty damn cool. So gone on to do some cool stuff.
I wonder if that's a reference to one of his earliest roles, because I don't know if you caught this on his Wikipedia. He was in Max Headroom.
I did see that, and it mentions it on his website too, that he began his career at 15.
Technically, within the show, his character creates Max Headroom. So like his character is the one that's like responsible for Max Headroom existing.
Now, does that
Um,
inspire an interest in this kind of stuff, or was he already interested in it? That's
I mean, that was 87. I don't know really how deep any of this was at the time.
sure.
But yeah, because like I don't know if you know what the hook of Max Headroom is, but just
Does he
at a
like
certain
take
point,
over the airwaves? That is
there's
like
part of the joke, yes, but the character is created as a computer reconstruction of another like real person, and uh, yeah, he calls him. It's a long story, but so yeah, Chris Young actually he plays the character named Bryce Lynch, who is the guy who inadvertently creates Max Headroom. So which is pretty wild. So what starting it off, you're in Max Headroom, and then you're in the Great Outdoors with John Candy.
we talked about Max Headroom before. I was trying to figure out why. It's because the people that created Max Headroom directed Super Mario Bros. Movie in the 90s. It's funny why we went down that rabbit hole before.
Yep.
And then, I mentioned he has a little coming of age story. He has a love interest named Cammy, played by Lucy Deakins, who, again, I would say all the same things about her. We're kind of playing that in between, not quite a young adult, not quite a child. She's a local where they're vacationing, so they know they don't have any kind of relationship that's going to last, and they deal with it in a rather mature way. And I think she was very charming in the role. She looks like she has retired from the entertainment industry, unlike her co-star here, but just as good a performance, in my opinion, in the movie.
I agree. Nice little. I like the way that wraps up with just like an acknowledgement that like, hey, this is not going to be a thing that lasts, but nice little twist. But
Lucy
basically sends him
Deakins
back.
is 53. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, she was
like, it makes
was,
sense. The math checks out. But like, I just watched this movie and I watched this like little teenage story, and it's weird to think that's a 53-year-old woman now.
I don't know if you know this, Chris. John Candy's dead. It's sorry, that was you teed that right up. But yeah, fun little side plot there.
All right, Andrew. That's our main cast. I think it's time we can jump into the scenes. Wait. What am I doing? I left out a very important cast member. There's a bear that plays a pretty prominent role in this movie. Played by one of the most famous bears in Hollywood. Played by Bart the Bear. Basically, if there was a bear at a TV show or a movie in the late 80s or 90s, it was probably Bart the Bear. Looking through his credits here, 12 Monkeys, Homeward Bound 1 and Homeward Bound 2, Legends of the Fall, White Fang, and probably his most famous role, The Edge, the movie about the killer bear. Tons and tons of credits. It's fun to scroll through this, and I've heard plenty of stories about actors hanging out with Bart the Bear and being, shocked by how like friendly it was, but also being very aware that this is like a monster. But yeah, they got the best in the biz for this.
They did. They shoot him in the ass. Yeah, I was surprised that Bart the Bear had his own Wikipedia page, and I was like, yep, there he is.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about the scenes of this film, and let's start with the best scene, or at least our personal favorite. So in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene in the Great Outdoors?
I actually am going to go with, I'm not actually. I'm going to go with the water skiing scene. Just because this is John Candy, kind of like his prop comedy best. Obviously there's a stunt double for a lot of this, but this is just kind of classic hijinks. And again, just reminds me a little bit of Christmas Vacation, to the point that I'm like, is Christmas Vacation just the Great Outdoors with a different coat of paint on it? And the answer kind of is yes. But I'll explain more in depth later, folks. Don't worry. But premise here is just a classic mix-up. Like, John Candy is trying to teach his son how to water ski because his brother, Uncle Roman, has gotten this fancy hot rod of a boat. And for some reason, John Candy has the skis on and ends up with the thing in his hand. And he makes a bunch of signals at the boat, and they think he says go. So naturally, just your classic mix up, which leads to an extended sequence of John Candy flailing around madly on the water skis as they send him around everywhere. He's narrowly avoiding decapitating people with the rope. He is being flown all over, ends up running into ducks, goes everywhere. It's just the kind of stuff that you kind of expect from John Candy to an extent, the physical comedy aspect of it. Obviously kind of stuff that, Chris Farley would become known for later and things like that. But it's just madness and chaos. And, the whole scene is basically John Candy going, ah! As he just, moves through the scene. But it's very funny to me. And I just enjoy watching John Candy in that scenario. I think it's just fun. There's more meaty scenes in the movie, in some cases quite literally, but this is one where I'm just having a good time watching it. Just classic summer family vacation hijinks, and no one died, so all the better.
It's a good bit. It's a good pick, Andrew. I especially appreciate how, I mean, obviously there's stunt doubles being used. I don't think anyone is going to think otherwise, but it's all put together very well. You can tell when it's like a professional skier out there being shot from behind or whatever. But anytime it cuts into John Candy and you see him from like the waist up, it's seamless. Like he'll be down to one ski and then it cuts in. He's not actually out there skiing on one leg. I wonder how they shot this. It's not a green screen. It must be. Maybe he's just standing on a boat because like there's actual water behind him. I don't know how they did it, but it's him acting like he's on one leg or spinning or whatever. And like I said earlier, the man makes anything funny, but just every little look and decision he makes, hilarious. This scene, no different. This is definitely like from a, I guess, action standpoint, like the climax of the movie, definitely the most like wacky 80s hijinks it gets into. So Andrew, I think for that reason it is a good pick, and I perhaps unsurprisingly am also gonna pick a John Candy scene, and I'm just gonna go with him telling the bear story to the family and scaring everybody, because it's just John Candy giving a monologue, and he's very good at it. And not only can he make anything funny, but he just loves being like a dad, having a chance to like scare his kids with a creepy story, do things with his kids that his dad did with him. Like, it's so sweet. John Candy is very good at that. And not only is he good at being funny, he's very good at being so lovable and so endearing and so sweet. And even whenever he's like a little bit wounded, Plane, Trains, and Automobiles being a great example, but some scenes here, it just makes you like him that much more and feel that much more empathetic to him. But he does a great job telling the scary story about the bear that who was it in the story? Is it his grandpa that sees it, that takes a shot at him and
I think it's him. I think Chet presents the story.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Later he says that his dad told it to him, and his dad, but yeah, in the story, you're right. He puts himself in the story. He's the one that shoots at the bear, shaves the top of his head with his buckshot. And it turns out to be true by the end of the movie, which is kind of,
that's ridiculous.
Kind of ridiculous. Yeah. But it's great. One thing I don't understand about this scene is, everybody's getting real creeped out, real scared. He's telling this story by the fire. He's even turning down the lights as he tells it. He's getting real close to people's ear for certain suspenseful parts. And at the very end, for the big jump scare, like, you throw some alcohol in the fire to make it rush up. And then everyone gets mad at him and leaves. And it's like, this is... What did you think was going to happen? Why are we mad? The man just told a gripping tale.
I didn't quite understand that. Yeah, that was a little weird. I was just kind of like, wait, what
everyone's so angry. But, it's John Candy giving a monologue, and it's, not only is it hilarious, but it's just showing a lot of his talent and his skills in one scene. So for that reason, I had to highlight it here. It's my favorite in the movie.
I think this is an excellent pick. I think there is I think the way he tells this is very gripping. It's very interesting. He makes it very compelling. Like you get kind of sucked into the story, all the different effects, and yeah, it just turns out John Candy's really good at this. But yeah, I like it a lot. I think this is a good pick. It's another instance of just the talent that the man had, and it's unfortunate that he wasn't around. Still isn't around to continue
Andrew,
to
I
use
don't know if
that.
you know this, but John Candy's dead.
Turns out. But yeah, it's a good pick. And even like everybody's kind of getting sucked in by it. And then yeah, he throws the alcohol in the fire, and everybody's so upset. They're like, "Oh, come on, what are you doing? Give me a heart attack!" And it's just like, what's the deal here? What's going on? What's the deal with that? What's the deal? Why are you guys mad? Don't understand.
So the main story here, the main thrust of it is that Roman shows up, and throughout the movie, you kind of hear him talking about finance, and he says that's what he does. He's in investments. You hear him on the
Mm-hmm.
phone trying to get people to invest in something, and eventually you find out that he's trying to get Chet to make this investment, but not just out of the goodness of his heart. It's because Roman is actually broke and desperately needs an investment to stay afloat. That's the main story here. And like I've alluded to a few times already, nestled into it is a story with Buck, who's Chet's oldest son, who meets a waitress in town who turns out to be a local. And when they first meet, she totally brushes him off because they're in sort of a tourist town. She wants nothing to do with someone from the city that's not going to stick around. But he's charmed by her. He pursues her. He shows up at her work, wins her over, inadvertently like stands her up one night, and then they reconcile, and they have this very sweet conversation on a boat where they are recognizing that he's only there for a few nights, and they both admit they like each other. They're willing to say that they're boyfriend girlfriend, but they know it has to end. But they decide it's still worth it. It's still worth it to like have this connection and experience this. And it's very nice. It's very well done, and it's literally like John Hughes, like the B plot to this movie. And of course, he crafts it so well because he's so good at this coming of age, young love stuff. Not to sound too backhanded here, but I think the B plot is better crafted and shaped and more complete than the A plot. Not that the A plot's still good, and we'll talk about it. But I want to highlight, I highlighted John Candy as my favorite scene only because I felt like a cheat to string together all of the Buck romance scenes. But I think it was very well done and ultimately kind of my favorite plot of the movie.
I think it is very well done, and like you said, it comes off well. Like I mentioned earlier, that I kind of like how it resolves, where like it's this kind of amicable parting as much as it can be, but like this kind of tacit also admission that there was something here, and I'm gonna leave you to think about that as you go back to the city. I kind of like that little twist on it, where it's not like the whole "we'll find a way to make it work" type thing. But
Yeah. Meet back here in 5 years or whatever.
5 years is an eternity, folks. 5 days is an eternity at this point. But yeah, I like it a lot. I think this is a good pick. And yeah, it just like I said, I like the way this unfolds. It feels very authentic. The sequence where Chet is eating the steak and it kind of messes up their date, like that kind of anxiety that he feels about it, comes through really well. And yeah, it's just props to Chris Young and Lucy Deakins. Yes, there we go. For playing these roles as well as they did. I think it comes off really, really well.
I mentioned the animal hijinks, Andrew. There's this running bit with raccoons getting into the trash, and they actually have subtitled dialogue.
Yes, they do.
One of my favorite lines of the movie is spoken by a raccoon. It's I believe he says, going through the trash, a load of raw hot dogs. I think it's just the funniest line. Raw hot dogs. It's silly, it's wacky, it's 80s. The bear we've talked about already, he shows up in the story and then again for real at the end. But the funniest animal encounter, I think, is when the bat is loose in the house, scares everybody in the middle of the night. They all run outside, and Roman's like, "Don't worry, Chet's gonna take care of it." And Chet finally mans up, John Candy. He walks in the front door. Almost immediately, he just ducks as the bat swoops by, and like in one motion, spins 180 and walks back out at the same steady pace he walked in, and just says, "It buzzed me," and that was it.
Just a real
me.
Abe Simpson type moment of like, I'm gonna walk in, put my hat on, walk right back out.
Says, "Afraid of a little bat? Come on!" Walks in, walks out. It buzzed me. So
this is another scene, so I'm going to talk about this now. Where like it's a little odd to me that there's a lot of scenes in this movie that remind me of Christmas Vacation, and just the general plot is a lot like Christmas Vacation too. Obviously, Christmas Vacation stars Chevy Chase, but that skiing scene reminds me a lot of the sledding scene from Christmas Vacation, where like obviously, you know, he's taking the sled. It's meant to be fine, but he inadvertently makes it go 6,000 miles an hour, throws himself down the hill. Everything goes crazy. He's crashing through stuff, barely not, and then ends up crashing and crash landing and somehow surviving. Fighting the squirrel versus fighting the bat, like another sequence where, like, you know, in Christmas Vacation, there's a sequence where it turns out there's a squirrel in the house, so they're all losing their minds and running away, and like they go back in, and it ends up it's just weird animal hijinks contained in a space where there's people trying to deal with it, and they're just not prepared for it. They can't figure it out. Obviously, you have Roman showing up, who's somebody that Chet doesn't like. Now, obviously, in this movie, he's a main character and he's a genuine antagonist, but obviously in Christmas Vacation, Eddie shows up uninvited, and Clark hates Eddie. And you know, throughout the rest of the movie, there's an antagonistic, that's a relative, and he starts antagonistic. And then there's just the general themes and ideas of the movie where, like, you've got the base level of just like, you've got these massive groups of people that are all trying to exist in one house. They're all doing their best. And it still kind of all goes wrong. But then just that general thing of like John Candy's character and Chevy Chase's character they both have the same goal in the movie, which is they just want the families to have a nice holiday. Now, in Christmas Vacation, he is deliberately trying to bring in like the grandparents as part of it, and have like a good old fashioned family Christmas. Whereas in this one, Chet's just trying to have it with his immediate family. But just that idea that, like, you know, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you anticipate, it kind of all goes wrong anyway. And this is not particular, you know, it's not a unique setup. It's the same setup as, you know, the original Vacation to an extent. I mean, the original Vacation, that is the plot. He meticulously plans out this trip and everything possible goes wrong. But just watching this movie back now, I just was like, oh, there are a lot more scenes that I would say kind of translated over to that movie than I may have realized in the past. But it's, you know, like I said, it's not a particularly original idea, family vacation where everything goes wrong. But just some stuff where I was like, that's a little on the nose, isn't it? Now, there's no bear in Christmas Vacation. Much to the dismay of the movie, probably it would have been better if there was a bear. But
I guess it's a good thing that they're both John Hughes, right? It's not like someone's ripping someone off. It's just sort of
refighting. It's just John Hughes kind of just taking a lot of the trappings of a family vacation gone wrong, which again, like I pointed out, are the plots of Vacation, European Vacation, which is again just vacations gone wrong, which is all those movies are ever about. But the fact that John Candy gets to write them all means it's not plagiarizing; he's just homaging his own work.
John Hughes.
John Hughes, sorry. And it is interesting. Like, you know, Chevy Chase obviously will be tactful and say a bit of a notorious status in Hollywood for his, you know, treatment of others, his general prickish behavior. The irony to me, though, a little bit is that as we hear more and more about Bill Murray, it sounds like Bill Murray and Chevy Chase weren't that different, yet somehow the legacy plagues one of them, but not the other one. But
to be fair, though, the other guy in Christmas Vacation is Randy Quaid, who, you know, no one has anything negative to say about that guy, so it balances out in the movie. You got the one.
Yeah, Randy Quaid is definitely a totally level-headed man who has no problems. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Chevy Chase and Randy Quaid both do the convention circuit now. I've never heard anything bad about either one of them.
Okay.
Like, they have, I don't know if being 80 has mellowed out Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase does conventions, huh?
He does. He actually did one here recently, and I thought, because everybody jokes that my dad looks like Chevy Chase. And So the joke I've always thought about is I go get a picture with Chevy Chase and then I just post it and say, "Hey, saw my dad today." But it's a lot of money for a one shot gag. But it's
Yeah. What
but
would you have
also
Chevy
just
Chase sign?
I mean, I feel like it has to be like a Christmas Vacation thing, just because that's the thing I most notably associate him with, and it's it's I like there's Chevy Chase movies that I like. Again, I realize that he's controversial in a sense, but that's also why I've never really done it because I don't have any huge inclination to be like, hey, let's
Sure.
get something signed by Chevy Chase. But I feel like it has to be
What is
Christmas
Rainy Quaid's? I
Vacation-esque.
mean, I guess also
Also a
vacation.
Christmas
Huh?
Vacation. Like, yeah, I would just get like a Blu-ray or a Steelbook or something, and I'd probably just have them all sign it.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and
I
then just
guess
be like,
I always think of conventions as like for genre actors, but I guess
mm-hmm.
these days any big star can do
Yeah.
a convention circuit, right?
And Chevy Chase also does a little bit of the John Cleese where like he'll just do like they'll do that like, hey, we're gonna watch Christmas Vacation and then we're gonna do like an hour long Q&A and then there's like photos and autographs if you sign up for him afterwards. So Chevy Chase like and I'm sure he gets the same 12 questions at every single one of those Q&As and it's just I'm guessing it's just easy money for him. But like it's one of those things where like he's definitely like just entered that phase where he's like I'm just gonna make my money and then move on to the next thing. And but like I said, I've not heard anybody really say anything bad about meeting him at a convention. Not or I guess like to the level of like no worse than what I've heard about anyone else, where it's just kind of like, yeah, you meet him for like 20 seconds and that's it. Like it's the type of stuff where people are like, yeah, it's typical convention stuff where like you just don't
Yeah.
get a lot of time. Maybe they don't seem the most personable. There's not a whole lot of engagement, but like that's half the people at conventions, man. Like that's just normal. Anyway, weird comparisons. Just saw a lot of proto scenes. It felt like for
Yeah.
Christmas
No,
Vacation.
I'm picking up what you're stepping in there, Andrew. I was not expecting this movie to end in like an action climax, personally. But they set the stuff with the bear. The bear's real. The bear shows up in the house. They shoot at it, this time shooting his butt. He runs off into the woods, bare-assed. Bare-assed, I guess. But there's this whole plot where Roman's daughters sneak out of the car, which, by the way, quick side, these girls are weird, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean they play it up. Like they play the Twilight Zone music when they're in one appearance, and like the
yeah.
whole time I'm watching it, I'm just like, "You girls ever seen The Shining?"
But they just like sneak off into the rain. It's very
Weird.
odd. Anyway, yeah, the sneak off while it's raining. They kind of set it up earlier that they've been trying to go to this like abandoned like mine shaft, and that's where they find him. But it's Chet is gonna be the one that's gonna be the hero to save him instead of Roman. Ultimately, I guess we're inspiring Roman to be a better dad. Is kind of the thrust of the narrative. I don't know that we quite stick that landing. Hashtag PP. But at any rate, yeah, I didn't expect a literal bear chase and saving little girls from mineshaft to be the climax of this 80s comedy.
Yeah, like the fact that there's literally a scene in this movie where Dan Aykroyd is wrestling a bear with a boat oar. I was just like, that's weird. I didn't expect that. But yeah, and then they it turns out the shaved head bear where they shot it with a shotgun and its hair came off was a real thing, and then culminates in John Candy using a shotgun lamp provided by what is that guy's name? The guy who runs the thing. Robert Prosky plays Wally, the co-owner of this Pine Lodge resort they're at. Now, Robert Prosky, I would assume people probably know him. Our generation probably knows him from Last Action Hero. He plays the projectionist at the movie theater that gives him the golden ticket.
Alum of the show, then.
Yes, but he's also in Gremlins 2. He's in Christine. He's in Thief. He's in Broadcast News. He's in a bunch of really, really good movies. He's also in Rudy. He's in Mrs. Doubtfire. He's in the remake of Miracle on 34th Street, directed by or co-written by John Hughes. But yeah, just a great, character actor, done a whole lot of stuff. But
he's got a great line where he checks in on him and he asks John Candy how they're enjoying the stay, and John Candy says, "How could you not in a place like this?" And he replies, "You could get the shits from the well water." And he's like, "What was that?" And
What's it? What's
he's already
it?
cut off.
Um, so just a great, like, sardonic, just super cynical character. But but you see the shotgun lamp earlier in the movie. This movie has a lot of like weird, like, there's literally things that only exist just so the movie can reference it later. Which, I guess that's just what foreshadowing is. But it's, in this case, it's a shotgun lamp that apparently only works if it's plugged in. You can only shoot the shotgun if the lamp is plugged in, which makes no sense at all. But it is used to shoot the bear in the ass, and then the bear flees the house in apparent discomfort. Or as the raccoons, I think, note, he's now bald on both ends now. But just a very
and
wild
a post-credit scene, no less.
And a post-credit scene. Also, the girls, there's a whole thing where, like, they find dynamite at the bottom of this mine that the girls end up in, but nothing comes of it. I don't think. Like, I don't think they use the dynamite for anything. So, like, I just point out that, hey, there's dynamite down here, and it's like, okay, was there any reason for that? No,
just to add to the potential danger.
To add to the danger, or add to the crisis of the situation. But yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, definitely a trip, because this all kind of this all starts with this admission from Roman that he's ruined. That the money he was getting from Chet, he can't actually take because he's just basically bankrupt. He's got no money. And that money was basically to prop up the next thing. But he confesses, after lying the whole movie. But which makes it okay. But that's when they realize the girls are missing, and that's how, Roman has to get over his claustrophobia in order to go down and save them, because one of the things that he's pointed out in this movie is that his kids don't really connect with him. And so this kind of gives him a moment to be the hero, to be the dad that kind of saves them. And, I think the idea there is that obviously is going to help their relationship. And then obviously
there's that
Chet
great moment where Roman's in the bathroom and he's asking his wife who's in the shower. He's like, "How come Chet's kids look at him like he's Zeus and our daughters can hardly stand me?" And she's like, "Well, maybe you can spend more time with him." And then he gets the phone call. Put a cork in it, honey.
Literally, like
the most aggressive a-hole.
Yeah, so it's a real mystery. It's one of those. It's like it's like this story about a parent that's awful, and then like 2 years later, they're like, "Why won't my kid talk to me anymore?" I don't understand. And it's like, I think it's Caligula was more subtle than you are, but it's but yeah. So it gives him a nice little moment that he gets to be the hero to his kids and gets to establish that moment, and then John Candy gets to shoot a bear with a shotgun. So can't go wrong there either. This movie is basically just like a warm blanket for me. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it's just very comforting to watch. Like, if I'm not feeling well and I'm just like laying on my couch, I'll put this on in the background. I have about 5 or 6 movies I can do that with. Or I can just be like, you know what, just listening to this in the background is going to be helpful, even if I'm not paying attention. I can come in and out of it at any time. I don't need to, it's not, I missed the beginning, so I don't know what's happening. And so I can always come back to it. It's always fun to watch. John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, I think play off of each other really well. We haven't really talked about that, but I think they work together really well. I think they have a good chemistry. Obviously,
just a couple guys from Chicago. It makes sense that they're able to get along so well.
But maybe not to the level of Steve Martin and John Candy, but I think Steve Martin has better chemistry with anyone by default, because he's Steve Martin. But it's just, they work, like, I like the scene where he's eating the steak. He's eating this 92-ounce steak, and basically just Dan Aykroyd is his hype man the whole time, like, just trying to walk him through it. And he's like, "You could do it, like, get through it." He's like, acting almost like a hype man, like almost like a stockbroker of like almost everything. And I just think that comes off really fun. So they work well together. There's a good chemistry there. They had tried to work together before. There was obviously, I've probably mentioned during various episodes that John Candy was originally going to play the Rick Moranis character in Ghostbusters, but the timing and the schedule didn't end up working out. So obviously there was an attempt and a desire to work together. And it's actually kind of interesting because one of the other things that kind of came out in the John Candy interviews, because John Candy was obviously on the Second City Television show that was on for a while, had a variety of characters that he played, as did Rick Moranis. Harold Ramis showed up there, Eugene Levy, a whole bunch of others. Anybody that's where the Bob and Doug McKenzie stuff comes from with Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas. That's where all that stuff comes from. And then obviously that was kind of happening at the same time Saturday Night Live was. And Ryan Reynolds in kind of his interviews revealed that like the Saturday Night Live guys were actually kind of jealous of the SCTV guys because SCTV was taped. And he's like, so they could edit it and they could do all sorts of stuff that they didn't really have the chance to do on SNL. Like SNL was kind of defined by its format and that limited what you could do. Whereas with SCTV, they could tape various things, they could edit stuff together, and they had a little bit more freedom in that regard, which he was kind of surprised by because he figured it would have been the other way around, where you thought the SCTV guys would have been kind of jealous that they weren't able to have like a live television show every week, but it was a little bit of the inverse. So a lot of those guys just circled each other a whole lot, trying to work together. Like obviously John Candy worked with Harold Ramis and Bill Murray from Ghostbusters on Stripes, and I think that was probably the start of that, that desire to get him involved with Ghostbusters, but ultimately that doesn't come to pass, and then we get to this, where they get to star together. So it's kind of cool they eventually got to do that, and I think the chemistry and the relationship between those two speaks for itself. So,
and I feel like the ending of this movie, if not, it doesn't tease a sequel, but like it's teed up for you, because we find out that Roman says,
great
"Hey,
indoors.
I'm gonna race you to the house," and Chad's like, "What does he mean by that?" And his wife explains that she said they could stay with them until they get back on their feet. So, yeah, you can easily see a sequel where they're trying to live in the same house and work alongside each other and all the same in jokes. Yeah, the great
maybe
indoors.
that's what happened. What they would call it. The great indoors became Christmas Vacation. That's just what happened. But
I'll allow it, Andrew.
I find it kind of funny because at the end of the movie, when he's just like, race you home, and John Candy's like, race you home. What does he mean by that? And he walks over and he's talking to his wife and he's like, he said race you home, but he lives all the way in Oak Park. What is he talking about? I know where Oak Park is. I used to live in Oak Park. So it's kind of fun.
You did like a Leo point at the screen when you watched it this time?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. Same as when Joe Pesci says he's home alone in Home Alone, which was the other night. But yeah, it's a trip. It's kind of funny, like watching a lot of Chicago movies now, and like knowing the references and understanding things, and being like, oh, I actually know what that means now.
Have you driven by the Home Alone house? Is that worth doing?
I actually haven't yet. I was thinking, because I play hockey up there sometimes, up near because that's way north. It's up in Winnetka, which is like a really rich part of town on the north side. So it's probably like, on a bad day, it's probably an hour plus from my house to get to the other side of Chicago to see it. But I play hockey up in Evanston sometimes, which is right nearby. And I've thought about like one night just either going up early and trying to buzz by. I don't know if they decorate it. I don't know what they do, but it's out there. 671 Lincoln Avenue.
For listener demands, it certainly wasn't a requirement. It was anything goes, whatever you want to hear. But some people did make it a point to throw some holiday themed movies for their demands, and these are movies that we are not going to cover this month. There were just too many for us to cover all of them, obviously. But just want to shout out that Deadpool Holiday Edition was thrown in there, which that's the cut of the movie I have not seen. It's the one where they do like a Princess Bride thing, right? With his name that I'm not remembering right now. That was submitted by Brett. Actually, it says me, that guy, Brett. So thank you, Brett. Also submitted Santa Jaws. So he was really pushing for some holiday. What else we have on here? The Santa Claus 3. Specifically, the Santa Claus 3 was thrown out there. I don't think I've ever seen the third one. I quite enjoy the first one. Haven't seen the second one in a while. I think it was all right. The third one came out so much later. Martin Short. Andrew, have you ever even watched the third one?
I have, because like Martin Short does something weird where he's like goes back in time and like becomes Santa Claus instead of Tim Allen. And so we get
Okay.
this like weird alternate timeline hijinks where like we're in present day, but he's not Santa Claus, but he's never been Santa Claus. And it's really weird. And is the Nazi Santa Claus too?
God, I don't know. I don't remember a Nazi, but it's not the first one, so I'm
Well,
guessing
like
yeah. That's
there's a weird stand-in Santa Claus he puts in charge of the North Pole that basically turns into like he starts wearing black uniforms and marching people around, and it's a little on the nose. Um, Basically, I think that's two, because he leaves to find his wife, and I think that's who he leaves running it while he's gone. And then there's the TV show, and I've not watched any of the TV show, so I don't know what's going on there either. But I was really sad that no one recommended Santa Claus the movie, because I really wanted to make you watch that.
that the one
Because
by
that,
the Superman producers.
yeah, it's the one with John Lithgow and Dudley Moore, and
Yeah,
the Big Lebowski plays Santa Claus. It's absolutely insane. It's one of the most insane movies I've ever seen. I literally have there's a whole episode of the show where I like in depth describe the plot, and it's just one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Like I just watched a guy who was like, "Man, this is not good." I was like, "I know," and I'm going to watch it 10 times this year. But I think we had a few other holiday ones mixed in there too. Didn't we have like Muppet Christmas Carol? I think was in there.
Muppet Christmas Carol, Christmas with the Cranks, just keeping the Tim Allen rolling, got thrown out there. Home Alone,
People really wanted us to talk about Tim Allen for some reason.
They tried. They tried their hardest. And,
you failed.
It didn't happen. Gremlins 2, which I always think is holiday. I think we had that penciled in one time for holiday. Then we're like, wait a minute. I think it's just the first one that's Christmas. I don't think the second one is. Also, the Star Wars Holiday Special, which, I mean, it's our show. We do whatever we want, but like, it's not a movie. It's not a theatrically released movie, but
it's only a movie on the outside.
Andrew, do you think that ever gets a proper release? Ever?
No.
From now to the end of time, never getting a proper release. Will it ever be streaming on Disney Plus? How about that?
No.
No DVD, no physical, no streaming. Not happening.
Not while Disney owns it. I never is a long time, but like I don't think there is a time where Disney will put the holiday special anywhere.
But they love money. Like it seems like we're gonna be getting the
what money are you gonna make off of the holiday special? You're gonna get diehards that buy it and nobody else.
Zero. Anything with Star Wars is gonna sell something, right? And it costs them nothing. It's already made. Like just upscale it. Like it's never been presented in any kind of. It's all bootleg. So any kind of decent. I don't know. I'm not saying like it's a treasure trove. I just think there's a way to make money off of it. I mean, we're getting original Star Wars, right? I haven't really dove into this, but I keep hearing these news that like
that's the rumor.
It's finally happening.
They're upscaling the OG Star Wars to 4K for something like 27. I don't know. I'll believe that when I see it. I've been hearing about the uncut Star Wars is being rescaled into 4K for way too long to believe it until it happens. I will be sitting in that theater, and I will be sitting in that theater, and the credits will roll, and I still won't believe it. And then the credits will finish. And at that moment, maybe I will believe it.
You'll just constantly be expecting a little CGI critter to screw you across.
Yep. 100%.
Another movie that was submitted is superhero movie. Andrew, we're finally going to cover a movie. Right? I mean, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Scary
something
movie,
like that.
epic movie, date movie. Superhero movie. I've never seen this movie. In fact, of all the movies, I've only seen the scary movies. By the time they started doing the other genres, I was like, I think I'm good. I think I'm out. I think I've seen part of, I couldn't even tell you, but I have not seen superhero movie. It seems to have defenders. I mean, certainly someone, I think this call came from inside the house. I think one of my brothers got in there and submitted this. Shout out to Trevor. So we're gonna be talking a superhero movie. Andrew, you seen this one?
Probably Once Upon a Time. I actually was talking about parody movies with somebody this week, today actually, because I was trying to separate because obviously Zucker Abrams Zucker is like the 80s heyday of spoof, from like Police Academy to Top Secret to Naked Gun. Eventually the Naked Guns kind of get taken over by somebody else, and then you start getting like Scary Movie is like the Wayans brothers thing for the most part. There is a duo called Seltzer and Friedberg that do the original Scary Movie draft, but then the Wayans come in and kind of take it over, and they do Scary Movie 1 and 2. And then I actually think David Zucker takes over um Scary Movie with 3 and does 3 and 4, I think. And then Superhero Movie is not Seltzer and Friedberg, but David Zucker is a producer on it. But then you start getting the Seltzer Friedberg spoofs, and that's like Meet the Spartans, Date Movie, Vampires Suck, stuff like that. And then buried in there somewhere too is Not Another Teen Movie, that I don't think is any of them. So there was definitely a surge of spoof movies in the late 80s.
There was a lot of them.
Late 90s, early 2000s. And
there's a Hangover one that I can't remember the name of.
There's some really stupidly named ones that are just awful, but like,
there's the Scream one that's like Shriek.
If I Know What You Did Last Summer or something.
Last Friday the 13th or something like that. Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a lot of really concern, like a lot. And the thing about spoof, what we were kind of talking about was just like how spoof is so difficult to like nail, and that even when you're good at it, you can still run out of, like Angie Tribeca. I've spoken about how I love Angie Tribeca before, but even by the third season of Angie Tribeca, you're just kind of like, all right, we're running out of juice here, aren't we? Like we're kind of like spinning the tires. Like,
I've started that show multiple times. I've never got to an episode I don't like, but I also never finish it. But I've seen the first
season. The first season,
so many times.
I love the first season. The second season does pretty well, but then as you get into the third, and then the fourth does change things up a little bit. Tries to have some different ideas. They kind of come up with a narrative solution so that each episode can kind of parody a little bit of a different thing, so that like you can have an episode that's like a Fargo send up and things like that. But and I still love, there's a gag in the early season, or first season of Andy Tribeca, because Alfred Molina shows up as like the lead scientist in their like crime lab.
Yeah.
And it's an episode where somebody's smuggling drugs through wedding cakes. And so like Detective Giles is like got this piece of cake, and he's like rubbing the icing on his teeth like cocaine, and he keeps like eating it, and he's doing all this stuff, and then he finally is like, man, this case is so crazy, it keeps changing. It's one thing and then it's another thing, it keeps shifting, it's changing. And finally Angie's like, hold on, you're wired. And the scientist is like, everybody stop. And he puts on these gloves and he takes the piece of cake, and he's like, and he tells this story about like being in Belgium, and and like, you know, talking about when he saw guys like smuggle drugs through the chocolate, and then he like very haphazardly throws the cake into a microwave and slams the door and turns it on, and he's like, and what happened, and he explains the process about how when it got to a certain point and then the microwave dings, and he's like, exactly as I expected, and he opens the door and just pulls out a brick of cocaine and goes, drugs. And it's like and just the way it all plays out, where he like, it just, the fact that he literally reaches in and pulls out, clearly threw in a piece of cake and pulls out a brick of cocaine. I die every time. But, and like even Leslie Nielsen was like the king of parody and spoof stuff. But then by the end, you were just kind of like, oh, you're doing like Wrongfully Accused and stuff like that. And you're just kind of like, this is rough. But, so it's a tough thing to be good at, and it's an even tougher thing to stay good at, because the problem with so much of it is that it ends up just being so lazy. Like the problem with a lot of stuff is like, it's easy. Like Vampires Suck has one joke: Twilight is dumb. That's the joke, but like that doesn't give you a lot to go off of.
I think
like,
it's better when you are parodying a genre or a whole array.
Right.
You like Police Squad is just the cop procedural. Like it's not anything too specific, so you can just have fun in this sandbox. Airplane is actually very specific, which I think, myself included, younger people don't realize how specific of a parody that is of Airport. but it still manages to be like an overall disaster movie.
There is
send-up.
other things that it can kind of pull from. Like it's definitely like the bulk of it is like pulling from Airport, but like obviously you're able to bring in other things, and like you can say that it's something like um what is this about, like Robin Hood Men in Tights is clearly meant to largely be a parody of Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, but it obviously brings in a lot of other pieces and other stuff and things like that. Same way with Dracula Dead and Loving It, where it's largely meant to kind of be a parody of like classic Dracula, but then there's references to Bram Stoker's Dracula like in it, like references to like the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula that came out. And so yeah, when you kind of narrow it in, it can be a difficult thing to pull off, because if your only joke is that the movie you're parodying is kind of dumb, then that juice runs out real fast. Like if your only joke that you're playing is that Twilight is stupid, that's going to run out of juice real fast, because you're just not going to have anything to go off of. There's nothing interesting there. There's no work there either. Like that's the thing too. Like you could make a movie that parodies aspects of Twilight in certain ways, but like if all you're going to do is make a movie about how dumb it is, like that juice doesn't hold out for 90 minutes. Like the better parody exists of Twilight, and it's the riff tracks. Like if you listen to Twilight with the riff tracks, it's infinitely funnier than anything in Vampires Suck, because it's just guys riffing on what's happening on screen and pointing out the absurdity of it. And it's actually funnier than an actual parody movie that was made. And so parody is just a tough thing. And I don't want to, so when people are good at it, but I guess that's the thing. Like even when people are good at it, they don't necessarily continue to be good at it. And it's tough. It's not an easy thing to figure out. And I don't know that I've seen superhero movie in a long time, so I'm interested. I know there's some funny lines in it, but I'm excited to see what's there, see if the juice is worth the squeeze.
Well, that will be next week. We'll be talking about all the positives of superhero movie. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. Follow him on Blue Sky. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. And check out our store on TeePublic for the best of the rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Opposable thumbs, though, right? That ever bother you about the cat?
Definitely the most. I have had that same thought. It didn't bother me as much as it bothered you, but I have very clearly, I've had that same thought of like, you don't need thumbs to flush a toilet. You need thumbs to like open a door, maybe. But yeah, I don't. And even then, like, I don't think you need thumbs to like open the right type of door. So I don't know. I always thought that was ridiculous.